So here we are again in the third and final part of this conversation with Jill Gardner. Thank you very much, Jill.
You're welcome.
It's been a wonderful discussion, and I can tell that there's been communication sounds like it's an important value for the family, and everybody, we're all in furious agreement that communication's good, but how it actually happens and whether it happens, and everybody's interpretation of it is different, and often people communicate badly. So, would you mind sharing with us some of the highlights and how you, as such a broad group of 545 members at the moment, communicate?
Yeah, I would be happy to. I think one of the realities that we have is we have every type of demographic within our family, and we cannot assume that one type of communication will work broadly across that group. So if we are looking even just from the 21 to say, let's assume communication is going to drop off when someone is 85. So if we just are trying to reach out to the 21 to 85-year-olds and keep them informed of a variety of things, we have learned that we can't, we have to diversify our communications. So we are at the point now where we have a communication calendar, and we have a monthly meeting, and then we have more intense meetings where it's much more hands-on to talk about our texting strategy and our social media strategy, and how are we going to have, what about Zoom conversations where we're going to open up dialogue between family members, and what about webinars, and which ones are the priority right now? Where are we missing? Where does it seem like we're deflecting as opposed to answering questions, and how can we rectify that? And what about print communication? Because we certainly send out both a board newsletter and family journal. And how are we going to maximize those to do what we want them to do? It's an interesting temptation to our family journal is supposed to be family voices, family authors. And every once in a while, an LNC staff person will, or executive will be like, I really want to get that in Woodstock. I'm like, well, you're gonna have to find a family member to write it then. Trying to have these sort of sacred spaces for family voices, and then also to get the information from our business asset to the family. We find that there are a lot of vehicles to transfer assets generationally. There are fewer to transfer legacy generationally. And the goal that we have is to make sure both of those things are passed down at the same time, together in harmony and in tandem. And so to do that requires communication. So it is really my job. I consider to be a communications job, and I partner with many other people for whom that is a primary focus.
Fantastic. And I've seen you were kind enough to bring a couple of copies of the Woodstock publication, which is fabulous and quite dense, and there must have been 20 people mentioned or featured in there, and I'm sure it will be a goal. There must be people queuing up to say, well, I want my profile in there. Talk about legacy documents. I mean, the internet and digital is ephemeral. I'm showing my age there. But video you mentioned in a previous chat, so powerful. So yeah, that's fantastic. And could you maybe just talk at a high level about the structure that you have, and if somebody wanted to exit the structure, at a very high level, is that allowed? Is it discouraged? Is it made easy, or a certain time of a year that those kind of discussions can be, considered?
Right. It's a sore point for us that it's not easy to exit ownership for someone who would like to do that. There have been instances where, on sort of a one-off basis, it was deemed like best for Laird Norton Company for that owner to be bought out. So it certainly has happened. And then when we did, we sold Lenoga in 2006, and that was a very large liquidity event for our owners. And LNC did a very large divest and exit program at that time. And we said goodbye to, I think it was maybe 25 owners. at that time and bought out their ownership completely. We do kind of a very limited divest and exit program. We do require the exit. See, and so some people would love to sell a portion, say, of their ownership, but if LNC is going to buy any ownership, then they are required to divest entirely and exit the right to ever be an owner again in the future. So that's, for some people, that's not really what they're looking for. We are working to make sure we have a variety of liquidity pathways for family members so that they, between redemption and between our DRIP program, like that they have access besides our distribution to gaining more liquidity from their ownership of Laird Norton Company.
Okay, thank you for that. And just lastly, any words of advice to a family who are fortunate to be enjoying the benefits of their hard work and can see the next generations coming through, and they're feeling a bit burdened, and maybe they haven't prepared these people and as well as they could, and the old J. Hughes, capitals, and the Jim Grubman line about people who create the wealth are migrants to the land of wealth, and yet their children are natives. So
Right.
any thoughts? I appreciate you not giving advice, but yeah, your thoughts on the person who's struggling to start this and is hearing this and going, that wow, that sounds like a lot of work. What would you say?
Right. I mean, there might be very legitimate reasons to not go down the pathway the Laird Norton family has gone. But I love that you use the Robert Frost quote in your book, where you talk about, hey, you wish you could give your kids the hardships that led to your affluence, right? So you can give them your affluence, but it's hard to give them the actual human qualities that were developed to get there. And I think that is what makes it, so tricky, because leaving, wealth, I think we've talked about this, but wealth is an accelerator, and it accelerates whatever is there in the human that we're talking about, whether that's foolishness or wisdom or intelligence or addiction, right? And so you have somebody who might be very hardworking and very diligent, and wealth will accelerate that, and that person will probably become even more so, not less so. But then somebody who is inheriting wealth, how do you make sure that person also has that, application of hard work and diligence, so that when they have the wealth, it's a blessing to them and not something that is, causing disruption. And I think that for us, where we can't do everything there, but the education piece, and then we find that it's human connection, it's meaning, because humans are meaning making machines, and when we have meaning with what we are doing, whether it's wealth or anything else, and if the meaning is what drives the way we're interacting with reality, whether that's wealth or some other sort of reality, then it's likely to go well.
I couldn't agree more. And after we saw you, we met Lee Hausner in LA, and she put it to us that really our job as parents is to produce competent adults.
Yeah.
And I mean, competence, it's a broad word and open to definition. But I think being able to deal with difficulties is part of that, and some resilience, because things inevitably will not always go your way. And if there's a bit of an expectation that you were born at the end of a rainbow and you've had this silver spoon, and the rest of the world who don't understand that can still be a difficult thing to deal with and has its own challenges, and some of which are even more taboo, because you're one of the worried well, if you like, and
Right.
you're not in crisis as the system would describe it. So
And I think one of the things when I was raising, I mean, at one point we had all of our 4 kids were teenagers, all at once. And I remember, saying to one of them, our job is to make sure you neither want to or need to live here ever again once you leave, right? And that's not a math problem. It's tempting to reduce that to math, but that is not a math problem. Like what does it take to be a human that can function independently and wants to do so? That's kind of very much very, very, very far apart from math.
Yeah, I love that. And all of this is saying to me that, you need time to develop these thoughts and zoom out and see the big picture. If you're head down, bum up, as we say here, and you're, working 70 hours a week in the business and just dealing with crisis to crisis, it's very hard to have that long-term thinking. And
Yeah.
wonderful to have people to talk to who've been through it and share those experiences. And I loved what you said earlier about cousins as well. I mean, they're kind of like siblings that you don't have the same level of intensity. You're less likely to want to kill. I read somewhere, less likely to want to kill your cousin.
That's
So, and they're great support networks. So Jill, I'd just like to thank you again for your generosity of time, both before this chat and during it. So thank you very much. I think the stories you've told are inspirational to families, and it really helps for somebody to have to know that people can go down that road and come out not super easily. It sounds like a lot of work.
yeah, yeah.
But look,
But, it's meaningful work. So,
really important. And I think what you're doing with the legacy of that family in particular is absolutely amazing. So thank you very much for your time, and I hope we get to chat another time.
thank you, Donald. I really appreciate it. I'm happy to chat to you. It was really fun conversation.
Thanks a lot, Jill.